Hey, Patreon video people and Black Tribe
He's laughing
podcast.
because he was just being extremely inappropriate.
And inappropriate, my wife looks hot. She looks good for our little podcast session here, video Patreon session. Hey, I want to throw something out here because I did a little test last week
Oh.
on our podcast.
Oh.
And I said when we started how much I love our intro music, which is AC/DC Back in Black. And we've always had that on our ringtones and all that.
That's our fan.
But I actually didn't have Caleb put the intro music on, Caleb Paul's, the beginning and the end, and no one, we've had about a little over a couple hundred listens so far, no one said anything about no music.
And so what was your test?
So my test is, are you really paying attention? Because this is good stuff.
Or is there a global pandemic and you're trying to survive and nobody's really cares about anything like
Well, there's
that?
a lot of time to listen to podcasts, so
Okay,
come on,
okay,
catch stuff.
okay.
I
All
like it. Hey, welcome guys. We are excited. We're continuing on our Fatherless
Wrapping it up.
podcast, wrapping it up today.
Today is our last, well, I mean, we're going to talk about fatherhood the rest of our life,
Yes.
but this kind of focus, we're going to move into motherhood and parenting after this.
Whoa, okay. And so last week we talked about the Malachi Mandate.
You talked about it because that's your life message.
It
That's
is my
your
life
story.
message. Yep,
And I
Malachi
can't
4,
even
5, and
say
6.
it, so
You have a hard time with
I
Malachi.
have a hard time with a lot of things these days.
The God says the last scripture of the Old Testament. Again, it's not the last book. It's not in chronicle order, but as we read it, it is. And He's going to turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, or the parents, and the children's hearts back to the parents, lest He strike the world with a curse. This pandemic has felt like a curse. It's not.
It was so fun in the beginning.
And the prophet Elijah is going to come, and I believe, guys, this is the time for the prophets to arise. I really do. It's time for some voices to come to the surface. I believe we're in the best time ever on the planet. I can't believe that all of us, get to live for such a time as this.
Honor.
It is an honor. God's ripping the bandages off of culture and race and everything. And this president stuff is crazy. And so, anyway, we're having a blast. So let's dive in, babe. I want you to end, because you got to, I think, 13.
We got to 13, and number 13, because we were talking about the principles of fatherhood and what fathers do and the difference really between men and boys.
Yes.
And so we've created a culture for boys to stay stuck in boyhood, and then we blame them for not knowing how to act like a man.
That's right.
When they don't have examples. Nobody's really showing them. And so we're frustrated and we criticize them, we put them down instead of coming around them and
creating some
their
fatherhood.
arm around and creating some
Encouraging
fatherhood
them,
in
yeah.
a relationship.
I was talking to my dad, my 81-year-old father, about this yesterday. This is why, by the way, we've moved back to the Springs, is to be with him, help him end well, and then our 3 special needs nephew and nieces that we are going to be in charge of and kind of are now. Lisa's making them dinner every night. She's amazing. And my dad and I were talking about first and second half of life, and he'd never really pressed into that stuff.
Oh, interesting.
And that, boys in your 20s and early 30s maybe, you need to create and do things and explore and build containers that you get to kick over as you get older. We've talked about this a lot, but it's just a good review. We build that container of education. We get to the top of education and it really doesn't fulfill. And we build that container of climbing the corporate ladder, and we get to that top and it doesn't fulfill. And the problem is most men in America, because we've had no initiation rites. Seth Barnes started my day at 5 a.m. this morning with an email about initiation, which was powerful and awesome. We've never initiated the next generation, so many boys just stay stuck as boys. And then they marry their mothers because they just want to be taken care of.
Right.
They want their laundry done and their food cooked. And then young ladies are self-initiated through menstrual cycle and pregnancy and that kind of thing. But a lot of them marry people that are like their dads because they want to be taken care of. And it creates a really hard atmosphere. And then we're just reproducing what we've been doing this last 50, 100 years on the planet. And so God's shaking that up. And He wants to raise up men, strong men that are going to stay and stick around. And He wants to raise up strong women who are independent and have their own platform, but are going to encourage and empower the men around them and partner with them. Absolutely.
I want to talk for a second about, because I think this is a place where it's so highlighted when grown, like men, they have male bodies, They've gone through puberty. They have facial hair. They look like men.
Mike, mine.
Yeah, you definitely.
Yeah.
You're a man though, babe, in every way.
Okay.
But you've been watching The Last Dance.
The Last Dance is this Michael Jordan Chicago Bulls documentary about their 6 championships.
And I'm not that interested in basketball. If it was football or something like that, I'd probably be more interested. But I just walking back and forth and seeing like little pieces while I'm doing the laundry or whatever. And I think that is the best example we have in the United States of America of when we take little boys out of not always, mostly fatherless homes.
Right.
And we offer them women, cars, tons of money, tell them they're God, tell them they're all these different things. And then we're disappointed when they sleep with prostitutes, when they use women, when they cheat on their wives, and they gamble, and they do all the things that little boys do.
Yep.
And I'm curious as to why we think as a culture that why we expect them to act any differently.
Well, it's great. I mean, Richard Rohr really dives into this in Adam's Return. By the way, get that book if you've not read it and you are a young man or an old man or a woman and you want to know how to marry a man.
That's true.
Adam's Return, the 5 promises of male initiation. He talks about, we take these young, teenage, early 20-year-old inner city kids and we give them millions of dollars and no fathering.
Yeah.
And we expect them to become these perfect model citizens. And
be heroes and role models.
And heroes and role models,
I was listening to Michael Jordan. Like, I don't know why they want me to be a role model. I'm an athlete.
Yeah.
Like, I wish I hadn't put that pressure on myself, is what he said.
And it's way more than just about basketball. It's one of the best documentaries I've ever watched. But Michael Jordan was a jerk. I mean, he was a complete asshole. He just was.
Why do you keep using that?
I'm sorry. He was just mean. And he was mean to his teammates. He was mean to coaches. He was mean to the front office.
Sweet face. That's hard for me to believe.
But it worked. It was his way of motivating the people around him. And anytime anybody said something a little off color to him, that was what would motivate his fatherless heart.
Okay.
And when his dad was actually a good dad in his life. When his dad was murdered and died, there's one scene where they win a championship, the first championship they win, that when his dad wasn't there and it was gone. And he's just laying on the ground, rolling and bawling like a 3-year-old little child. And the cameras are catching this. I'm not sure why they let them keep that in. But he was fatherless. He really never became.
Even though he had a father.
Yeah, and you can tell he's still. Lonnie Dyer and I talked a lot about this yesterday. He's just doesn't seem happy in the documentary. He just doesn't seem. He's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. He's gambled more money away than any of us will ever make in a lifetime, and he's just not a happy person.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're talking about, is we, as a culture, as America, as the planet, we have got to call out the fathers and teach them how to father, and call out the young men and teach them how to become men, not to stay stuck as little boys. In your early 30s, guys, you're supposed to transform into the second half of life where you don't need to be successful. All success does is feed your ego. You just want to make everyone else around you successful, and then success will follow you. But it's about serving other people.
It is about serving other people.
And in your wife and your marriages. I was saying this in a counseling session the other day, a coaching session. I said, look, when Scripture says that a man lords over his wife or leads his wife over his wife, all that means is he gets to be the first one to forgive. He gets to be the first one to humble himself. He gets to be the first one to say he's sorry even though he's right, even though that maybe he wasn't wrong in the relationship. That's how we lead our wives. And when we do that, now, thank God, you'll actually repent and say you're sorry.
I haven't been wrong enough in my life.
Are you stuck, baby?
No, I said I was sorry.
No, you're awesome.
This morning.
You're awesome.
Okay, so that goes to the next point, is that we have created more players than leaders in our males. And they're not equipped for manhood. And so this is, when I teach on the beauty of males, because they are amazing beings and I love them and I think that we need to support them a lot more. But I always do the breakdown for women of the difference between a little girl and a woman. And usually eyes are like this, because we all see ourselves in it. We're like, oh, I do that.
Yeah.
Oh, I do that.
Right.
Oh. And so I was asking, like, what is the difference between a little boy or a boy? Because there's nothing wrong with being a boy. In order to become a man, you have to go through that process.
Absolutely.
But what's the difference between a boy and a man? Because we can't break it down to facial hair and muscles and going through puberty.
No.
Because we all know, like we always say, we all know 80-year-old boys We have a family member that's almost 100 who has a lot of boy-like qualities
Absolutely.
that are not charming.
He has never transformed into
No, he has
second
never. And so the difference between a boy and a man is a boy chases after momentary pleasure, and a man looks for long-term fulfillment.
Wow. That's kind of like what we say, Andrew taught us in our marriage. We don't need fantasies.
No.
We need memories.
We've got memories.
So we make good memories.
We make memories.
We don't need to invite porn into our room or something else to try to create these momentary pleasures together. And we create memories.
Yeah, if you need more than 2 human bodies, a closed door, and a bottle of wine,
and a fan on,
you're making this way too complicated.
So boys chase momentary pleasures, and men
look for true lasting fulfillment. Okay, so give me an example.
I gave
an example to my men, and they were like, wait a minute, I'm not married. I said, pornography is a great example of, I think, one of the greatest plagues that has hit this generation.
Yeah.
Men and women. It affects everybody involved. But that is a very momentary pleasure thing. But it gets to the point where if men specifically don't rein that in, they are no longer able to enjoy long-term pleasure with the actual real living, breathing woman.
We coach a lot of young couples that don't have sex and invite their kids into the room for an excuse to not have sex.
Yeah.
And and it's because pornography will kill your sex drive. That's what it does.
Yeah, because it's a momentary, and God didn't design us that way. He designed us for true intimacy.
Yes.
So the reason my guys at the time, they were all single, and they were like, wait a minute, you can't say that because I'm not married. And I was like, I'm giving you an example of a fake thing that the enemy has presented to you to lure you in, to steal from the real thing, which is true intimacy with your spouse.
So when you're single and you're looking at porn, what do you do with that?
I would think, do you want to share your life with a real woman one day, not a woman that's on a screen that is probably
a bunch of little pixels?
Well, that's probably being abused and probably been trafficked. No woman that I know would sign up and go, hey, I want to do that with my life. Right? So, I mean, think of the bigger picture, but that's where you have to start thinking of, like, what do I want long term for my life, and is this going to bring me that?
Yes.
And pornography is not going to help you in true intimate relationships with anybody. It's going to steal your intimacy. It's going to bring shame on your life.
It's good.
It's going to bring everything you don't want.
Good.
So a man wakes up one day and says, you know what? What am I going to do today that's going to bring me lasting fulfillment instead of momentary pleasure?
Right. It's always about life and death. How am I going to create life into my courtship and into my new marriage someday? Or am I going to bring death by being addicted to pornography and expecting or needing something that a woman can't even provide outside of that?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really good. That's fabulous.
Do you have any other examples of
I mean, I think porn's probably the best example we can use because it's such a huge epidemic right now.
Well, okay, here's like frat boys. Their idea of a frat boy is, I'm going to get as drunk as I can as fast as I can.
Right.
A man is going to be like, this is really expensive bourbon.
Yeah.
And I would like to enjoy it with my wife or my friends around a fire and a really good cigar.
Or scotch, most likely.
And
a Lefroy 16.
There's been a couple shows we've watched where they're like chugging bourbon. We're like, you don't shoot bourbon.
Right. Well, if it's like a cheap bourbon.
That's my point.
Yeah.
That's just, to me, that's an example of, like, what is the goal here? The goal is to actually enjoy it and taste the flavors and have the community.
This is a great time for my joke.
Oh God, is it a dad joke?
Is it a grandpa? It's a
joke?
male joke.
Okay.
And son joke. So you got a big bull elk and a small elk on top of a hill, and all the herds down below them. Hundreds of female cows, elks, are down below. And the young bull says, man, Dad, we should run down there and have sex with one of those. And the dad looks at him, he says, son, why don't we walk down and have sex with them all?
Oh, God.
See, that is the difference between a boy and a man. Right?
He's going to mosey down there
and
seduce all the, what's the female
cows.
Elk, a cow?
Yeah.
Well, what a good day to be a cow.
Okay, maybe not the greatest example, but it's a good joke. So
I thought my bourbon example was much better.
Yeah, I think so too. All right.
Especially for our tribe. Okay, so this is, I can't prove this, but I do believe I've seen this, is that men fear failure almost more than anything. And that if a boy is convinced in his own mind that he's going to fail, he might just opt out to not even try.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of young men say, you've had them say to you specifically, my parents' marriage didn't work.
Right.
I'm not even thinking about it.
Yeah.
Right? And even our own 17-year-old son saying, I don't want to have kids. It's too expensive. Like, yeah, hello, welcome to our 6, yeah? But I'm going to disagree a little bit.
Okay.
I think that what I'm watching with these young men in this generation is that they're more afraid of success than they are afraid.
I don't know what that means.
That means that if they actually were successful, it's going to be too much responsibility and they just can't do it.
Okay.
So they stay away from it.
It's easier to play video games and act like you're accomplishing something like killing people and winning a war than to actually go out and do it.
Right. Exactly. Because you're afraid, oh my gosh, I might go do this and I might be good at it.
Yeah.
And then what am I going to do? Because now I'm responsible.
Well, and is there anything in there? I heard an older man say one time, I don't want to peak at 30 because then I have to maintain that the rest of my life.
Right.
Is that real?
That's a fear. That is a definite fear. And so I think it is both failure and I do think it's success. And again, we try to teach all the young people we're with, you're going to fail. In fact, that's the only time you learn something. If you're always just being successful, you don't really learn that much. But when you're failing, you learn from those failures and you do it different the next time. And you're going to fail over and over and again. So your marriage is going to be hard and your life is going to be hard, and that corporate ladder you're climbing, or that ministry ladder you're climbing, or that missionary life you want to live, all of those things are going to be extremely difficult. And a lot of bad things are going to come from those, and a lot of beauty and grace and success. And I was just listening to my daily Bible today, and one of my favorite scriptures in the Bible. Do you know what it is?
I thought you were.
I'm in Ecclesiastes right now.
Oh. Money is the answer to everything, and wine.
Well, Ecclesiastes 10:19 says, a feast is made for laughter.
Yeah.
So that we party together, we have big feast. Wine makes the heart merry.
And money
is the answer to everything. And it's true. I mean, Solomon was losing his mind a little bit while he was writing this, but that is true. And in the midst of that, you find a lot of fun and you find a lot of really hard times.
Yeah, the thing you have said to me for the last almost 21 years now that drives me crazy, but you're right, is it's horrible and wonderful.
It is. Always.
How's today going to be? It's going to be horrible and wonderful. What do you think is going to happen next year? It's going to be horrible and wonderful. And I hate it, but you're always right.
Yeah, it is. That's the definition of our life. It's always amazing and beautiful, and it's always really hard and it sucks.
The beauty of getting older, though, is you overcome enough bad days where when they come, like
you hold them right, yeah.
Like this morning I got some bad news that would have taken me out a couple years ago, and I went and walked and ran and prayed and asked the Lord, and I was like, I forgive. I'm not going to become bitter. I'm not going to become, and I just let it go.
Yeah.
Where I think I would have stayed stuck there for a long time and just kind of circle the drain for a while.
That's what I mean by when you transform into that second half of life, especially as a man, you hold news the same, bad news and good news, exactly the same. You just say, all right, Father, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Right? And again, it's really great news. God, am I supposed to do this? Or is it really bad news? God, what are we going to do about this? And we keep walking and we keep moving.
Okay.
That's good.
Okay, so one of the characteristics of fatherless men
is
that they relate to women as mothers and sisters,
right.
not as wives and lovers,
because
they've not had any example of what a husband looks like and what a husband does and how a husband acts.
And that's a great example. It was interesting in that Last Dance, that documentary we were talking about. I think the agreement they made with the Bulls is to leave the women out of it because they don't show any women. But they talk a lot about the prostitutes that are in the hotel room and the drugs and all the stuff that were in the hotel rooms all the time. And they're all addicted to gambling, every one of them. I just read that Charles Barkley lost $30 million in gambling.
What's the thing with gambling? Is that you feel like you're winning?
Yeah, it's competition. You're always, like you watch that documentary, you see Michael always has to be doing some kind of competition. $100,000 on one golf swing. See if it's the closest to the hole, or before the football or basketball games, before the championships, he'd be in playing nickels against the wall with his security guards, and he'd say it 3 times. You get 3 times the $20, and they're just passing out $100 bills like crazy.
Do you remember when this was happening in our home with your sons and you? And finally, nobody was paying their debts, including you, and everybody was yelling all the time.
Yep.
And then I said, "There's no more betting in this house at all."
Yep.
And then the boys started telling me it was a gentleman's bet. I said, "I don't care what you call it." You guys are, I'm tired.
It's just the drive. It's the drive of competition.
Do you remember the one time you took me gambling into Cripple Creek? I was like, give me a $5 bill. I lost.
She went $5 and it was gone.
$5, and I was like, well, everything here is sticky and smells like cigarette smoke, so
we were gone.
I don't understand.
Yeah.
I just spent $5. I didn't get anything in return. I'm done. So that's my gambling story.
Yeah, and honestly, if you want to stay stuck as a boy, you will never get over that competitive. We see it at G42. It's awesome. We have an outdoor basketball court in the village in Spain.
Oh, all the real personalities come out.
And they come out, man. And I mean, those first 3 months of these young bucks coming in, and we get out there, and I can't even move anymore hardly. My game is completely gone. But I just get in body, and I just check people, and I just do a hip in, and you'll see that little boy come out in about every single one of them. And then that second, they go on their practicum and they come back, and I watch them helping people up. I watch them, speaking life over each other, throwing, passing the ball more, because that is a great place to learn. Why is this coming out of me?
Yeah.
And then I, of course, pointed out and let them know, that sounds like a little boy. You want the little boy come out? Nick was great. We had this great intern, little Nick, and he was chucking little Spanish kids on the basketball court when he first got there. He was so competitive. Oh, and he broke from that, and he really became humble on the court. That it was awesome. So
character comes out.
It does.
Okay. Men, real men, grown men, not little boys, conquer their fears.
Yeah.
They don't try to control or lord over the vulnerable.
Oof, that's really good.
I don't think a man could beat a woman or rape a child if they are not full of pain and rage and hate and unforgiveness.
Well, and let me say this. I don't know any man that isn't full of those things. I have never met a man that is. I mean, I've met gentle, softer, older men.
Right.
Like my dad's become a gentle man.
Right.
But in their 30s, 40s, most men are really angry. Most men are kind of sad that they were even born. And that's why one of the top suicide rates in America is 50-year-old white men, because they get to the top of those ladders and they're still empty. And so it's, that's a really good point.
Okay. So I could be wrong here.
Okay.
I'm okay with being wrong. But as a woman and as a mother, I cannot remember not having a maternal instinct, which to me means just that I was always looking to protect vulnerable people. It didn't matter if I was a little kid myself. All of a sudden I would get real big and real tall if anybody was picking on somebody littler. And my maternal instinct, I cannot shut off vulnerable people and act like I don't see it or I don't care. I couldn't take advantage of it. Everything in me cries out to serve it and protect it. So a man is created to serve and protect, kind of like the police, to serve and protect. How does that switch? What to me that's like so opposite of what you're created to do? Where does that come in when you are created to protect vulnerability and you take advantage of it because you have bigger muscles, you have more size, you are, I tell everybody, by the time our boys were 12, they would just mess around with me and we were just wrestling. But I was like, oh my God, they could do anything they wanted to me. They could hold me down, spit on me, or do whatever. And sometimes they would, because we had a lot of fun at our house. But it's true. Women and children are more physically vulnerable in that way. So is that like a complete distortion of what God created them to do? Is there so much pain there that they're lashing? Because I don't think rape has anything to do with sex. I think it has everything to do with
control,
hate
power,
control.
hate. Yeah. Again, it's what do you do with your pain? Do you allow it to transform you, or do you allow it or do you transmit it on everyone around you? When you are fatherless and you're not taught by a good man how to live in your pain, own your pain, and be transformed by it, but all you've seen is men who abuse women and abuse people because they're so angry and no one's ever shown them, right? And so then it becomes, when we open ourselves up like that, with that fatherless hole inside of us, a demon will come and attach itself to that. And it looks like rape, and it looks like violence, and it looks like all the things we see. And most men try to drink it away or anesthetize it, and they never actually own it and feel it and walk through it. And because, again, it's not our fault. I mean, I'm not going to take away, I'm not going to excuse people who beat women or who rape women. Of course not. I'm seeing a lot of hatred towards, men that are in the child ring. And I agree with all of that. Except that Jesus died for all of us, every one of us, even those people, and we need to have some grace there to try to lead them into that space. But that's the point.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole point of what we're talking about, is when young boys are left alone, all they learn is anger, and then it can turn into much more violence and a lot harder
Well,
things.
and there's no question that we were created to protect the vulnerable, and so we do that if someone needs to be removed physically from society because they can't control themselves, those things need to happen.
Yes.
However, what you're saying is there's a reason they're that way, and if we saw their story probably from way before they were born, you could see how they probably don't know anything different.
No.
There's no excuse for it because we all have free will and we have a choice.
We do.
But if we all say, I would never do that. I would never do what the disciples did to Jesus. I would never reject him. I would never deny him. Well, when people are coming after you with spears and they're ready to torture you, you might be surprised what you would do.
Oh, if I would have been given tens of millions of dollars in a pro contract at 20 years old,
I would have been a bad boy.
I guess I already was a bad boy.
I know.
And I had a pretty good dad. I mean, he had to learn how to be a father with us. And so it wasn't this huge fatherless hole. And I had an amazing mother, but I had it. So
you had to figure it out on your own, though.
I did. I didn't have a good example of what to watch.
You had to decide.
Yep.
Okay. Fathers teach other men how to provide for their families and how to protect their families and how. So I hear you, when you're counseling a young man or what, you're not real soft with them usually. You're like, listen, you were created for this. I even said it to Noah yesterday just to frustrate him because he's like, I don't want to do that. That's too much responsibility. I said, your shoulders were created for this, son.
Yes.
He's like, oh, God.
Well, and actually, if you'll study this, and which I do and have, young men really do want responsibility put on their shoulders.
Right.
They just don't know it.
Right.
So we really do want responsibility as men. We want to be that man. Nobody's ever told us, and it's never been drawn out of us or activated in us. And so when it is, everything changes. I mean, look at that little Andrew, who was our intern last semester, and how he transformed into the second half. He became a man. He made sure that.
Are you talking about Drew?
Yeah.
Hi, Drew.
All your stuff with you had your chair pulled out. I mean, he never let any girl get in any kind of danger.
He just kept getting better
right?
and better
It's
and
because
better.
that's what we're created to be as men.
Yep.
That's who we are.
Yep.
But we have to have guys, some big bulls around us to say, no, let's not run down. Let's walk down.
You know what? It cost him something, though.
It did.
And he really led his house well. And he really took care of everybody else. I think he was pretty tired by the time he graduated because so much of his energy went into serving other people, and he did an awesome job at it. But it is going to cost you something.
It will, every single time, and it is the point. It will cost you your life.
Yes.
This whole thing will cost. If you're willing to help others become great, and you're willing to learn how to become a great father, it will cost you your whole life.
We've just done right there. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
But what else is there?
I don't know why you would want to just not do this. Like, why would you just want to go through life numb, waiting to die, or the stupid dispensational teaching, waiting to get out of here, but taken into heaven, and get to heaven one day just because life is so miserable and the earth is so miserable? Why would you want to live that way?
I don't know. But obviously you and I,
well,
we don't fit into a lot of
not very well.
clubs around here. Okay. Fathers teach men to fight for their promises and to fight for their dreams.
Okay.
And one of those things could be the woman of your dreams.
Yep. Fathers teach men to fight for their promises and fight for their dreams. Absolutely. Or even create their dream. You don't give up.
Right.
A father will teach you that you don't do it out of ego. You don't do it out of proving to yourself or to somebody else. We're driven that way in that first half of life, and that's okay. We need that container as well, that ego container. But we do it because we want to see other people become great. Okay?
That's what you do, baby. You're a good father. Fathers help others find their true identity.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a word that gets thrown around a lot, and someone asked me to teach on it, and I was like,
identity.
And this is what I hear you saying all the time, and this is the stuff that I say to people. I'm like, that's not who you are. Let me tell you who you are.
Right.
You're claiming these things over your life. These things have been spoken to you. These things have happened to you. All of that's true, but that's not who you are.
Right.
You're a good man.
Right.
You know,
Yep.
And I think there's a lot of people that come through our life, and I can look at them and say, I know you're a good man. And I know if I knew how they spent like their last weekend, I'd be like, is he a good man? But I mean, the core of who he is, who he was created to be, is a good man.
Absolutely.
And I notice whenever you say that, men's postures change. Like whenever we're teaching, and I always speak to the 50-some-year-old men, and I'm like, hey, you're a good man. Thank you.
Well, let's be honest. Most men didn't have very good fathers. If the father stayed in the home, he was probably silent.
Yeah.
That's just the facts. We a lot of us had good fathers.
So it's fatherlessness.
In general,
if your father was in your house, but he never looked at you or talked to you, you could be struggling.
Or all he did was discipline you.
Yeah.
If he didn't encourage you and strengthen you and comfort you, 1 Corinthians 14, that's true prophecy. If he didn't prophesy into your life strength, encouragement, and empowerment, and courage, and life, and discipline, and then be an example. Noah knows every single morning I'm out here, first thing on a call with my boys to pray. Second thing is I'm in my quiet time, and I'm in my Bible reading, and I'm making him breakfast because he's working landscaping right now, and I don't miss that. Right? Discipline really matters, and your kids one day, or your kids now, are watching. Your grandkids are watching, right? And then you have to say this truth in love. You've got to be able to speak the truth, but don't do it out of anger and discipline. All I ever got from my dad was how I was never good enough. He would ask me to come and help change the oil, and I couldn't do it, so he'd grab it in disgust and do it himself. And I'd go out to shovel horse poop, and somehow I was going to do it wrong. Now he sees that, and he's a lot different. And I did that to my own kids. So this is me. I did this, right? We were angry as young men. But what we have to learn to do is say, you know what? I know you're better than that. I know that's not what you want to do. And in fact, if you do it again, I'm probably going to come find you and kick your ass. And I've said that 100 times, maybe 10,000 times.
Yep.
Right? I drove all the way across the country this summer just to sit with one young man in Indianapolis to actually kick his butt a little bit and to speak some really hard truth in love. And he sobbed at the breakfast table and said, no one has ever done this.
Yep.
And then he posted on Facebook that a man would drive across the country to tell me the truth of what I'm doing and how I'm missing God right now. And he was pointing the finger at everything else, right? And nothing was working. COVID hit and his ministry was gone. His girlfriend broke up with him. I get all these things. It's all happened to us men, right?
It's real.
And to all of us women. But we've got to say it through. Guess what? It's supposed to happen. This is God giving you a voice. You're not going to be an echo if you'll choose into this and let it teach you what it's supposed to be here to teach you, right? What's the lesson?
Right.
And now let's step over that and step back into manhood.
Yeah.
And go after it again. That's the point.
And he has to make the choice, and he has to step into it.
Yep.
But you were able to give him perspective. And that's the thing about when you're a little bit older, you can say, I know. I've been there. It's very real what you're feeling right now.
Right.
But this isn't the end.
Right.
This is the beginning.
Champ is joining us.
Champ.
Hi, buddy. All right.
You're cute.
Okay, what do we got? We almost got these done.
Okay, so you said...
fathers help others find their true identity, speaking truth in love, and the occasional slap. A little, we do like to smack people a little bit out of love. It's not bad.
We don't smack women.
Children are all asking, who am I?
All children are always asking, who am I? And I think that
That's so good.
I mean, this generation has a lot more freedom. Like, if someone says now, I want to be an artist, I want to be an actress, everyone's like, oh, go for it. You know, 50 years ago, that's stupid.
Right.
You need to go work in a factory, you need to do, and it's actually watching your child and saying, these are conversations I'm having with Noah a lot right now, because he's trying to figure out, like, what do I want to do with my life, and what am I passionate about? And he does have too many choices.
Right. That's surprising. He's not doing any of them because he's
overwhelmed with the choices.
Yep.
But I think about, like, your dad, my dad didn't have any choices.
Nope, they had to do what they had to do.
It was like, you got to do what you got to do, and that generation only thought of a paycheck to buy food, which was a noble thing to do. But many men, I'm sure, felt like, this is it.
Right.
Like, this is what I'm going to do for the next 50 years.
Well, you think about it, and it's even off this documentary, The Last Dance. A news reporter brings out a really good point towards the end of the documentary. She said, Michael hit these realms. I mean, he was the athlete of the world, and he is the best ever. I mean, you watch this and you will never argue with that again. LeBron James, these boys have nothing on this guy. Like Magic Johnson and Larry Bird were the two of the best that ever played the game. And they said when Michael kicked in, he played at a whole other level than we ever played. And they were saying that still playing basketball, right? But he said, she said, that he didn't have social media to make himself great. All these new young athletes are posting and videoing and doing all these things to try to make themselves. And this generation doesn't know another world without social media. So our son, Noah, is like, there's just too many choices. He doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
He doesn't even know what he's passionate about.
Right.
And we deal with this all the time with these kids.
It's really true.
So what do we do in that? We step in, we tell the truth and love, and we start activating them in who they are. We're watching who our kids are. What is their passions? What are they bent to go do? What's the gift inside of them? And then we're helping them find that. Right. But we don't want to steal the hunt. Again, I know I've said this, but don't go do it for them, right? They want a motorcycle. They're 12 years old. They want a little go-kart. Awesome. Go work for it. I'll meet you halfway.
Right.
Get the $500. I'll do $500. We'll buy it for $1,000. You just never want to steal that hunt, even when they're trying to find their passion. Like I'm doing with Noah right now, is we're going through a Devo together on a guy talking about finding your passion.
Oh, good.
And I'm just letting him kind of come to me with, well, what do you think about this, Dad? Because he knows what's inside of him, and then I can help bring that out of him.
And we had a miracle last night.
We did.
After raising 6 children together, the first time ever you had a 17-year-old who you said, I don't think you're supposed to go out tonight. And he said, okay, Dad, I trust you. Yeah. We've never heard those words before.
Literally, I came out of the room. It was 10-something at night, and Noah was getting ready to leave to go be with his friends.
And his social life has been shut down because of COVID.
Yeah,
so
I don't think I've ever said this to Noah. But Holy Spirit immediately checked me, and I said, son, you don't have to do this. I'm just going to tell you what I feel like Holy Spirit just told me is that you're not supposed to go out tonight. You're supposed to stay in. And I said, you can do what you want. It's your choice. I just felt like I heard that. And he immediately said, you know what, Dad, I was 50-50 anyway, and now I'm not even going to think about it. And he texted his friends, and he was done.
This is unprecedented.
It never happened with my other kids. But, I mean, I've built a lot more trust with Noah as well. Okay. Noah has a softer father than our other kids have.
But then he had his mother in the background go be with your friends.
Yeah, of course.
I know. That's how I am. Okay, and so I just do want to touch on that for a second, is that mothers nurture.
Yeah.
And so you get frustrated with me sometimes with the interns, with our kids and everything. Oh, you're going to just mother them. I'm like, yes, I'm going to mother them because I'm a woman.
That's what you do.
I have breasts.
Yes, you do.
And I have hips, and these are indicators of the soft roundness that nurtures.
Yes.
It's just it's who I am. I can't help it.
Absolutely.
Now, if I was the only voice, it would be out of balance.
That's right.
There's nothing wrong with my mothering except for it could be out of balance without. So we have conversations all the time. And I think Alexis needs a father.
Yeah.
Will you call her?
Yep.
And sometimes I'm like, you say to me, I think he just needs his mommy. And we've figured that out in our family.
Right.
We've had to have a million conversations about how to raise our family and get through the stuff that we've had to face. But fathering is incredibly important, but it is only one part of it.
It's only one part. That's right. And if you and as women, when your husband goes silent and you have to do both parts, you can easily get into manipulation and control because you're trying to do everything. And that's not a criticism. Right. That's just a fact of life. Mm-hmm. And so men, do not be silent. It's called Epidemic silence. Adam went silent and didn't protect Eve, and men have been doing it ever since. And we cannot go silent. Even though our kids hate us, even though our wife might bitch at us and yell at us for raising our voice a little bit, what happens is we get so beat down that we just stop saying anything. And guys, you gotta overcome that. And you've got to serve your wife and serve your children, even if they're going to treat you like dirt, because they need your voice in their lives, I promise.
Yes, and I do want to say on that point is that we had a lot of disagreements because when we got together, I had 2 girls, you had 3 boys. They were all very small. We parented very differently. My girls had very different personalities than your boys. We were trying to figure that all out. And there were times where I felt like you were way too harsh or way too angry or whatever. I did, however, really try to not say anything in front of the kids. But when we were alone in our bedroom, I was like, dude.
No question.
They're small.
Yep.
And that was like...
too much.
You poured bleach on, what you basically just needed a little bit.
You've got to be able to hear from each other.
Yeah.
Right? Because I was trying to learn how to be a dad, too, because all I saw was anger in my house.
But I tried not to disrespect you in front of the children.
No, you did. And I tried not to disrespect you in front of the children. I wasn't the greatest at it.
You say things like...
Yeah.
Oh my God, you got a baby over there?
What's really good about the Black Chai podcast is that we're talking all from experience. This is like we were these things, and we want to help you not be these things.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to have to figure this out on your own, but you can skip some pain.
That's
okay.
right. All right.
So what is the answer?
The answer, God makes up the difference.
He does.
How?
He really does. Well, I mean, I lived it. I suddenly had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and their dad was gone in an instant, and I thought, well, what am I going to do? Because I studied all the time the effects of fatherlessness, especially on little girls, because that was my job, and it was very concerning for me. And one of the things I did was I literally moved closer to my parents, because my dad is a really good man, and I knew they needed some male influence in their life. I wasn't going to drop them off at some, program or something, but they had access to him all the time, and they started doing all the things I did when I was a little girl, just sitting in the garage, playing with the sawdust while he was working. And it wasn't that he sat him down and had these conversations with him or anything. It was his presence.
Yeah.
The presence of a good man, I think, brought security into their life.
No question.
So we have to step in these places where there are fatherless children. I mean, foster care, I just heard an amazing story about one of our interns up in Denver, and she's working at a camp, and she's like, there's this 35-year-old dad, single guy, who adopted a little girl and a little boy. He was their foster parent, and now he's just adopted them, and he doesn't know if he's going to get married or what's going to happen. She said he is the most amazing father. And I think if we could really encourage our men, this is my last thing, is I have a responsibility as a woman to encourage the men around me in their fathering. Our son is a father. I don't criticize his fathering. I encourage his fathering. And when our granddaughter comes to me and says, well, Grandma, my dad doesn't want me to have this, but can I have this cookie? I back up my son.
Right.
Because that's going to hurt my granddaughter. And so I try to back your fathering up as much as I can, and I try to encourage the men around me. Like, this is really important. You're doing a great job. And I do see this new generation of fathers much softer, younger with their children.
Yes.
They are much more connected to their little boys.
Yes.
When their little boys cry, they don't say the things that older generations said, like, boys don't cry and stop having your feelings and stuff. They're like, hey, buddy, are you upset about something? I'm like, I see a shift that the men that are staying and the men that are doing the work are doing a phenomenal job.
No question. Way in front of what we were.
Yeah.
And it's awesome to watch.
Yes, it is really fun to watch.
Yep. And I'm encouraged by the whole generation, guys. Listen,
Me too.
The young mothers are tough. I mean, they're there and they're sticking in there and they're having babies. And guys, we want to have babies. Right? We're taking the earth back. We're making the earth look like the Garden of Eden. We need more kingdom people on the planet. Don't worry about overpopulation and all this hype about global, all this stuff. Yes, it's happening, and it's incredible because God is still going to make this earth look like heaven, and that's our responsibility. And so don't stop having babies. Yeah. Don't stop getting married. Do these things. Be a kingdom person.
This isn't the end. This is the beginning.
Because we need you to become fathers and mothers and then teach the next generation how to do the same thing. And we can break this curse of fatherlessness that goes down to the 22nd generation, illegitimacy.
Yes.
If we will just stick in there and learn from one another and actually honor one another. Children's hearts to fathers, fathers and mothers' hearts back to children. We love each other, we learn from each other, and we break this thing and we're done.
Yeah, we're doing it.
All right.
It's happening.
All right.
All right.
God bless you guys.
The fathers. Thanks for being a good daddy to my babies.
Thank you for being an amazing mother
You're
and
welcome.
an incredible wife. Wow.
It's true. I am
Awesome. God bless you guys. GaryandLisaBlack.com. You can message us on our Facebook, Gary and Lisa Black. This video is on Patreon for our Patreon people. Every Wednesday, I'll post it right now. It is actually Wednesday, and then Friday it comes out on iTunes and SoundCloud. Again, any questions, any feedback, anything you want to have us hit as a subject, we invite you to please let us know and ask us anything you want. Amen. Okay. All right. God bless you guys. We will see you soon.